ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to this new episode of Six Punk Chat. Today we have a very special guest. Special also because he started more or less to work like me 10 years ago, so we are old. Yeah. Don't tell to anyone. Or we are getting old. 10 years ago on in the customer experience world, and it was a pleasure because we met each other at events during that time, and then I heard that Ian was to basically start his own venture in this customer experience world, and I did the same, more or less at the same time. I remember you, this is Punk Chat, so we are here to promote individual freedom and anti-establishment view in the customer experience world. The format is always the same, one-to-one. It means one guest, 2 questions for one challenging customer management topic. But because today we have this special guest, we decided together to change a little bit the format and go in a more conversational way, but the question and the topic will be there anyway. So welcome, Ian. Welcome to join us here.
Thank you so much, Federico, and thank you for your lovely words. They're very much appreciated.
And by the way, I want also to promote your book that I see in the background. So Ian also, wrote a book about it. Is doing a lot of education, training. I think you have, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have also a program, to prepare for the 6PA exam.
Yes,
correct?
I do. Yeah, I do. I ramble a lot, Federico, is the way I describe it.
Perfect. So, as I said, I don't think Ian needs a specific introduction. I already said that we started, I think, my initial project in the customer experience world where I was employee, not, already in a startup, was around 2004 or 2005. So more or less we come, from the same root.
Absolutely.
So what I want to discuss with you, Ian, is basically, what you have seen, evolving, when we started, because I remember, and I always talk to my partner, when we started, he always told me, are you sure we should do something in customer experience? Because it was Googling customer experience and they were something like 50, 60 pages results in Google.
Yes.
And he said, I'm not sure it's a good topic to start a business, And then, of course, it becomes really a buzz,
Yes.
in the years later. But I would like to ask you, how have you seen this evolving? Also because you met a lot of companies around the world, you did a lot of programs. So what do you think was the evolution from 2010 till today about customer experience?
It's a brilliant question, Federico, and a question I get asked a lot at the moment. And actually, you've made me reminisce about the way I started in this, because I first had customer experience in my job title in 2005. So, if we trace it all the way back then, whilst I had it in my job title, did anyone really know what it was? No. Did I even know what it was? I'm not really sure. And in fact, the very first event I went to was called Contact Center World. So it wasn't even a customer experience event. It just wasn't recognized as a discipline at that time. And for me, everything changed when I met Bruce Temkin. Now, I met Bruce before the CXPA came along, before the professional association was created, but meeting him was a pivotal moment in my career, because my first conversation with him made me realize that I was not alone. I'd spent so many years before that trying to get the companies I worked in to focus more on the customer, but it was like pulling teeth. You know, it's no one really wanted me to do that. And that, you know, Ian, you got to hit numbers. You got to achieve your objectives. You know, stop being so evangelical. Stop being so passionate about the customer. And when I met Bruce, it was eye-opening to realize that there are lots of people that think like that. And so when the Customer Experience Professionals Association eventually came along 10 years ago this year, that for me was where everything changed. Because for the first time globally, customer experience was recognized as a thing. And I think that was a hugely important moment for anyone that has either an interest or a role to play in the customer experience community. Because prior to 2011, even the acronym CX didn't exist, you know, prior to the CXPA coming along. And so from that moment on, that's when momentum started to build, you know, and that's around the time, obviously you had created your organization around that time. I went independent shortly afterwards. And over the last 10 years, we've gone from very little awareness to huge awareness. You know, I don't think you could find any business anywhere in the world that hasn't heard someone talking about customer experience. And that's a good thing. But there are positives and there are negatives, because whilst the awareness is now through the roof, the understanding of how to practically apply it, in my opinion, is still in its infancy. You know, ironically, we're 10 years on, but most organizations, legacy organizations, are still struggling, fighting to understand, how do we turn this into something that genuinely leads to our organizations becoming sustainably customer centric? And as a result, seeing that reflected in our ability to sustainably grow as an organization. And so I think it is a wonderful thing to see everything progress, but have we really started to see businesses changing? Not really. You know, I don't want it to sound too negative, but we have a huge amount of work still to do. You know, it's almost like the first 10 years have been about, let's get everyone understanding what this is. I think the next 10 years need to be about people getting real. You know, let's get real, guys. Okay, that all of these business strategies related to short-term financial gain, do they really work? You know, I mean, this is what you've been trying to do for decades, but, you know, we need business leaders to wake up and smell the coffee. And what I've done a lot of, as you know, over the last 10 years is educating. You know, for me, education is so important. But as I said to a group of professionals from a bank yesterday, I've shared knowledge with over 20,000 people directly in the last 9 years.
Wow.
Less than 2% of those have represented the C-suite or equivalent. And that, for me, that is a fascinating statistic, because why don't they ever want to learn? You know, why don't CEOs come to a training course? You know, why don't they take the time out of their day to think, do you know what, I need to understand this? And not enough leaders of organizations are taking the time to develop their knowledge.
I totally agree with your point, and you remember me something. But first of all, I want to ask you, in which industry you were when you started to work in customer experience? So you told us this episode, which industry was?
So when I first had customer experience in my job title, I had started to work for an online retailer.
Okay, online retailer. Because I started to work in customer experience when I was in telecommunications. And I have to tell you, this then become recurrent in the other years. I was lucky because we were desperate and we needed to be customer centric, because we were a telecommunication provider that was every week on the television having some issue with the customers, you know. So we were really in the line of fire. So they gave me this role, and I brought at that time the Net Promoter Score as KPIs in order to increase. And you know, for a couple of years we were extremely focused, and we work and we won at the end, because we really turned the organization in a more customer-centric organization. But you mentioned CEO, and the other you know, episode I remember in the projects I did from 2010 till now was a CEO of a telecommunication companies that was desperate, and he called me and he said, you know, we have this problem. We have our customer satisfaction is horrible. People don't understand how important is the customer. And then I said, okay, I can do this for you. And 1 week later, he told me, okay, when can you start? You know, and then this customer is still our customer after 7 years. But the CEO really started to change the mentality of the organization, of the people. So I go perfectly in line with your comment, because the sad things is, if leaders in organization don't understand this, then forget about it. You cannot do it the other way around.
And there's an added issue here, because what that requires is stability. You know, now you've been running your business for 10 years, you know, but you think about the number of corporate organizations around the world whose CEO has been in place for 10 years, you know, and that it is so difficult to create a sustainably customer-centric organization when most organizations are so unstable that critical things are changing at least annually, but sometimes more than that. So, you know, it's like a revolving door at the top table of leaders coming in and out all the time. You know, and as leaders come in and out, they change the strategy, they change the direction, and then they say, do you know what, we need to restructure. And then so everything constantly changes, which means it's almost impossible for the poor employee to know, well, what direction do you want me to go in? And that's why I think very often what we see is that the easiest thing to do as an employee is just hit the numbers you've been given. You know, don't get in trouble, get your bonus, everything will be fine. You know, and it sounds, I'm not trying to demean the working population of the world, because
no, definitely.
But ultimately, it's a much less stressful way of existing on the inside of an organization. Trying to do what you and I did, that's you know, some people would call us mad. In fact, I was called mad many times. Among other things.
My parents called me mad. You know?
Just do what, just shut up, Ian. Just do what you're told. But you know, I'm not wired that way, and ultimately, I think a huge part of what you and I do, and many of our peers, is we need to give people the belief from the inside that they can make these changes happen. And you know, the final thing I'll say on this is that for the last couple of years, I have said a lot that one of the weaknesses in the last 10 years of our profession as it's evolved is that whilst we've done a brilliant job of creating awareness within corporate organizations themselves, and also the public sector, I think the public sector is advancing brilliantly as well. Where we've failed, in my opinion, is to get that same understanding, same awareness at the shareholder level, the business owner level. You know, and I think a lot of what we see, it's not CEOs actually who are determining the direction. It's the shareholder. You know, it's the financial markets. They're the ones that are actually leading businesses to behave in the way that they do. that short-term financial gain. And so I think I don't know how we deal with this, because it's not that simple, but it's almost like we need a consolidated effort to start educating stock markets to recognize that a long-term focus on customer experience will deliver a long-term financial gain.
Sure. But this is a very good point, and I think it's also something that goes in the direction. I recently read an article about the startup world, and there is, let's say, a lot of people starting to criticize the startup world, because, especially in the more American way, because said is a waste of basically investment, because successful is 1 every 10. They are not successful because if you see big company like, I don't know, Tesla, Salesforce, whatever, they never delivered a value in terms of be break even. So if you compare big companies in the stock exchange, old school, let's say, companies, they are much more profitable than these giants that no one knows if tomorrow they will be there, or not. So I totally agree with your point. We need to change this way to think short term, and I see that something is moving, but of course it will take a lot of time.
It's
for that.
Because it requires, in my opinion, a huge amount of courage. Courage and persistence. And again, when I remember one of the biggest pivotal moments in my working life was when I worked at GE. And people don't often ask me about my career before I went independent, but I'm old enough to have started working at General Electric when Jack Welch was still CEO. And it changed it sounds dramatic, but it changed my life, because I was suddenly put into this organization where, you know what, we will make more money as a company if we do the right thing for our customers. Well, I mean, it sounds so ludicrous to say it, but I mean, wow. And, it was so sophisticated, but so simple at the same time. For me, I will never forget how GE changed my belief that you can do anything you want to, and actually I probably spent 8 months of my 4.5 years at GE in a classroom, that it was constantly investing in me as a leader. And that's without question a lot to do with the way I am now. But those days have gone. It's so rare to see anything like that. But if you look at someone like Jack Welch, I always say to people, tell me the names of 10 truly transformational business leaders. It's like a quiz question, but a quiz question that even a mastermind can't answer, because there are so few. And we go back to the conceptual level 5 leadership, which is still so powerful. There are so few. And I harp on a lot at the moment about Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, because he's the latest in a very small group of people who I believe is truly transformational. But to do what those people do, excuse this expression to all of the ladies listening, it takes a huge pair of balls.
Yes, definitely. Let me ask you one question, Ian. And I want to double check. I take this opportunity to get a free advice from you.
Anytime.
So basically, my vision, as a technology company that support, customer centricity. I would not say anymore customer experience, because it's kind of a narrow, field. I would say more customer. And when I talk to my guys, when I talk about the evolution of our products, I always talk about customer intelligence. So basically, what I want, in the next 2-3 years to deliver to the market is a customer intelligence solution that is exactly the same as a business intelligence solution, but really focus on customer and focus with special algorithms, to analyze customers. So I wanted to double check my vision with you. Do you see the same? Do you see this need in the market to become really more customer intelligent? So, nowadays to start a business, the first things probably you ask is, I want to get these KPIs about our financial performance, our operational performance. Do you see in the near future that it's mandatory to have specific real-time KPIs concerning your customer base?
I think, again, it's a great question. Yes is the answer, and I'll tell you why. Because I think up until now, we have largely relied on our customers being very submissive, for want of a better description, in telling us what they think when we ask them. And the majority of organizations think they understand who their customers are as a result of constantly telling them, can you please fill in this survey? Tell us what you think. Tell us will you recommend us? How easy is it? And the thing is, no one will disagree that whilst VOC is critical, up until now, not only has it captured feedback after the event, the majority of that feedback is based on almost an assumption, of what you might do. That there is very little feedback that actually represents what we really did. Did you actually recommend us? Or, did you just say that because it was what you thought you needed to say? Yeah. And I think many traditional VOC mechanisms have got to the point where actually they're adding very little value anymore. And a lot of that is to do with, unfortunately, the obsession with scores and numbers. Yeah. I interviewed Fred Reicheld recently, and, even he hates it when people call NPS, Net Promoter Score, because he doesn't want people obsessing with the score. Yeah. He wants people understanding what they need to do. So I think, do we need to rely less on solicited feedback and more on real-time intelligence that tells us exactly how customers are behaving and why, without question? And if that technology exists, and if there are brilliant technological minds that can bring that to life, that is what will make a massive difference going forward. The days of complex CSAT surveys, I think we're coming to a point where there is an end point in sight, I think.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. And this is my vision, my vision. And that's been, by the way, has been always my vision since 2010. So, I was recently talking this week with, the person responsible of marketing in my organization. And I explained my vision. And then I told her, it took me 10 years to put together my vision I had 10 years ago, and now I'm more or less satisfied what I see in our product.
Yes.
Probably it will take other 10 years to get to what I have as a vision now.
I suppose when you're, you and your team are far brighter than I am when it comes to this stuff. But, the more it's used, the more you continue to iterate and learn. And that's one of the things that's driven Amazon's success. They've been essentially managing that business on customer intelligence from the day they were created. Yeah. And most of their consumers have no idea that that's what's going on in the background.
Yeah, definitely.
But a lot of what Amazon do doesn't work. But again, you don't know it because
exactly.
It's not a criticism. To them, if it doesn't work, that's good because it means we can learn from it and try again. And so, I think the fact that you are developing something that many will be able to benefit from, it is brilliant. And it's now about ensuring that those leaders who have that lack of education and think that customer experience is an NPS score, it's how we educate them to realize that actually there is a much smarter way of doing this.
Okay. Hey, Ian, I would stay here, the whole day discussing with you because it's so passionate for me and it's so nice to exchange. But of course, all the good things have an end. I thank you very much for, attending this video blog. It was really a big honor for me. And definitely, it was nice to have a kind of recap after 10 years.
Absolutely.
So let's see in 2030. So we booked already in our calendar.
You never know, Federico. My head might look like yours by then.
I hope you still have your hairs. Don't go to my hairdresser. I will
absolutely. But let me also say it's an honor for me as well. Thank you so much for asking me. We need to take time out to have these chats, when I think we're in this very honorable position of seeing so many things. You and I talking about it hopefully will give those listening more confidence, more belief that they can continue to do the great things they're doing.
Thank you, Ian. It was Ian, my friend Ian, and it was an honor for me. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, to listen and watch this video blog, and be prepared for the next episode. Thanks.
Thank you.